And we're live.
Hello. Hi, Rose.
Hi.
Hi, Tim. Good
Hi,
morning.
how are you on the other side of the pond there?
I'm good. I'm good. It's
Yeah.
much earlier than here. Rose,
Yeah.
where are you located?
I am in Connecticut, near
Okay.
Yale, near New Haven.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Christelle's in San Diego, so she's not really on the other side of the pond.
okay.
I'm in London, so it's
Okay.
kind of like we've got the whole of the of the Western world set up here. So I'm been very excited to have you as a guest on the show because, as you rightly corrected me for my poor use of grammar, you are a Pulitzer-nominated journalist. It's like one of these sort of linguistic things because I was like, presumably you're not still waiting to find out whether you won the Pulitzer. So I was like, well, yeah.
I was trying to say, like, if you're Oscar nominated or Emmy nominated, you're still nominated.
I know what you're saying. So, like, let's start off with the basic question. Like,
okay,
who is Rose Horowitz, and why does everybody say you're awesome?
I have a lot of experience, and I covered, kind of everything you can cover in a lot of things in journalism and business and feature stories. And a few years ago, 6-7 years ago, I started getting active on Twitter because most of my work before that time was digital or in print. And I said, well, I have to be on Twitter. That's where everybody is. And I just started building up an account. I became friendly with a group of people who I know through Sri Srinivasan in New York, who led like social media weekends and you meet people. So I developed a whole circle of friends. Yeah. And I guess in 2018, I had gone to the gym and put out a tweet, and that tweet went viral. And that tweet had the hashtag WomenToFollow.
Yeah.
So,
and
that's a summary.
Absolutely. That's what we were talking about before you came on the show. Once I realized that you are the woman behind WomenToFollow and such an incredible movement, I thought, yeah, this is someone I'm really looking forward to chatting with.
Awesome.
What inspired you, Rose, to do the WomenToFollow movement?
I guess I've always been a champion of women, and thought things would be further along from where we are. And one day I just went to the gym and came out of the gym, checked my phone, saw a tweet from a group called Gender Avenger, that is a nonprofit in that tries to get men to pledge never to speak on a mantel, and has ways of measuring if you're at a conference. So they posted a story from Vox that was based on a study in the university about like the whole core of Washington journalists. Of the core of Washington journalists, 72% of men followed men and retweeted men, but the same percentage was true for women. And I said, like, what? And of the men who even retweeted or followed women, there were only like 5% of women that they followed. So it's like, where are we, in 2018 and, where we are now. And I put out a tweet saying, let's get this Twitter party started. I'm going to name 3 women to follow and ask. And I tagged like 4 or 5 people in different fields. So Liza Donnelly is an artist, people in business. And I went to the library to do my work and my Twitter feed exploded. I was like, oh, what's going on here? And I came home that night at dinner and said to my family, I think something started today. I think something happened. So it kept going like that. And so in the first 2 weeks, there were 12 million impressions of the hashtag.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and then I followed it up since, but that's how the hashtag.
Yeah, because you've got a show now, haven't you? So
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a controversial question. What makes a good woman to follow?
Someone who is, a leader in their field, who is also supporting other women. So, for example, after I did the hashtag, about a month later, I interviewed Soraya Chemaly, who is the author of Rage Becomes Her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, and she's also was head of in the States, called the Women's Media Center. And, the book is great, and, it was exciting. So my focus because there are a lot of, my focus is global, or, so global and broad. So there were groups like Women in Medicine, Women in Tech, and I said, no, I want to have a whole span of women leading in their different fields. So that's the difference with this hashtag.
Can you list maybe 3 women that really stand out to you that we should all be following?
Sure. One of them is Judge Wren, and her handle is Judge Wren, and she is the pioneer in the United States of a whole movement to try to decriminalize, the jail system. So she is the first woman judge, first judge of a mental health court in Broward County in Florida, which is like near Fort Lauderdale. And that was 25 years ago. And that court has now been imitated in the US and in Europe and other places. So, and she's a great person to follow on Twitter, because she's always tweeting. It's not about herself, she's tweeting what they're doing in Seattle to handle this, and what, how community groups are trying to help, change this whole, instead of people going to jail because they have, they could have a disability, they could, all these, there's many reasons you go to jail, but it shouldn't be because of these your mental health. So that's one. Second, Soraya Chemaly, who I mentioned, who wrote Rage Becomes Her. She's terrific. It's hard for me to choose. I don't want to offend anybody.
I know, it's always hard, isn't it, when you have to so many good people, and you're like, oh, who do I say?
My first guest for my live stream show, I also did written profiles, but my first guest for this live stream show was Kirsten Alana, who is a travel photographer and blogger, and she's just a really generous and good person. And I had followed her. She says since like, I don't know, 2000, like 9 years, but I don't think I've been, I don't know if I've been on Twitter that long. So because I saw that in her post, where she'd be, Paris or wherever she'd be, if you just said to her, well, what, I once went to a cafe, and it was, I think over, she'll like tell it, find that cafe for you.
Yeah.
So very, very engaged, which I thought was really special, especially since she had so many followers. And then, so she was I met her again sort of in a Twitter chat, and I was, starting up my new show, and asked her to be the first guest. At the time, we were just past vaccines, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it would be very timely, because we're all going to think about travel again.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was just a few months ago, but it's already like some of her comments about how she said, well, travel. Her comments was, don't travel globally this year, look to the States, travel here. Yeah. But now we have Omicron, right? Virus. Yeah. So anyway, So those are 3 that I would say, I'm highlighting 3, but there are really many, many.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tim, I have one follow-up question, and then I'll
okay, well, I'm just going to put this, like Stephen Kaplan is confessing to watching on YouTube rather than on Twitter. So I thought I wanted to put that up.
He's my producer on my live stream show.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Thanks for being here. I have a follow-up question. I want to know what attributes about women say, this woman is someone we have to follow. This woman stands out. What are the attributes? What kind of lights your soul and says, this is it?
Somebody who's doing something first, somebody who's done something unique in their field, and somebody who is outspoken for amplifying women. I wouldn't choose somebody who has been on who's the one woman on an all male panel, right? Because, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, you want to be promoting other people who are also amplifying women's voices.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like, no, they don't have to have yellow hair or green hair, or, and I really try to diversify in terms of, color and who I feature.
Mm-hmm.
We have another comment, and they put it twice, so I'll put it up because I missed it the first time. But hi, Rose, Happy New Year from Brent Manuel. So let's talk about the thing that you're not a former. You are a Pulitzer-nominated person, and you will always be a Pulitzer-nominated person. Can you talk us a little bit about that and just your whole career as would it be fair to say an investigative journalist? Assuming I can pronounce.
Yes, I became that, but I've been also a feature writer and other things, but what I did love doing, and I'm not doing it now because I'm freelance and it's very hard to do investigative journalism as a freelancer. Mm-hmm. But when I started my career after grad school, I worked for the Associated Press, and then in a few different bureaus in the States, and then I went back to New York City, and I worked with a business paper, a daily business paper that is called the Journal of Commerce, and it covered. It was around since the early days of trading, when New York was a trading center, but it ended up really featuring international trade and shipping. So it covered commodities and, freight trains and shipping lines and everything like that. And I was breaking stories. I was pretty, new, but I was breaking stories like there was a story about it. This is a long time ago, but the Moscow embassy, there was a story, it was bugged. I broke that story and they asked about it in the, State Department press conference. Tom Friedman was asked about it. When the Exxon Valdez went down, I was the first to report that the captain had a drunken driving record.
Yeah.
So one day somebody sent to the newspaper, an blank manila envelope with no name, nothing. And the managing editor at the time, who had been on a Pulitzer, his name is Bob Frump, and he's a Pulitzer-nominated journalist, a Pulitzer winner for the Philadelphia Inquirer, saw this come in and said, I guess he said, who am I going to give this to pursue what this is? Because they were claiming that another company was monopolizing all the bids for our U.S. Food for Peace goods, the cargo that was being shipped to Africa. And so I started investigating that, and I spent 3 months as a solo investigator. I went to DC. I had a deep throat kind of source that I didn't tell my name. We meet at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I had a pseudonym, and was pursued. And then came out with a story that the bidding wasn't fair. So it was closed bidding. And this one company was, getting all the bids, and I traced ships. I traced, how much money might have been pocketed by these, this company versus going to feed the poor in Africa.
Yeah.
In the Sudan, let's say, I think at the time. And as we were going to press, this company wouldn't, never really responded. Of course we asked them, and as we were going to press, they sent a letter, saying we're going to sue you. But at that time, the newspaper was owned by Knight Ridder Corporation, which is a big, like Hearst is, now. They own, the Miami Herald and other papers. And I knew, I wasn't nervous because I had a big company behind me. Anyway, so we went to press with it, and we did a series of stories, and this Foreign Relations Committee in Senate saw the stories, held hearings about the issue, and they changed the law about how companies could bid, and it went from a closed bidding system to an open bidding system.
Yeah.
So I changed legislation. That's what, it's sort of specialized field in that, but it involved shipping and international trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to sneak in with a follow-up question.
So it won a World Hungry Year, which is an organization started by Harry Chapin. It won Best Journalism Series of that year, and it won the Associated Press Managing Editor Award and the newspaper nominated for Pulitzer in a category of the newspaper didn't have a circulation like the New York Times or something.
Yeah. So like in your days as an investigative journalist, as a journalist looking into things, he says, working out there. How many of these like envelopes and tips and things that you heard, or how many of them were actually came to a conclusion, and how many were sort of dead ends? I mean, was there a case of like you get lots of tips about things and a lot of them would turn out not to be true, or is it?
I think you only pursue it. You pursue it. And, if it's a tip like that, you're going to pursue it. But if it seemed like it was not going anywhere, you'd stop the investigation if you didn't think you could get somewhere. But you don't know until you investigate a little bit. So I don't know. Of most of the things that I remember investigating, I did a series of other things too. The investigation proved a point. And usually something had to change in the way things were done at the company or the industry or the law.
Mm-hmm. I've heard stories of this where when you want a lot of change, you tip off the press, or if you want something to change, you tip off the press. How common is that?
I think it's pretty common. I mean, I think that the reporter, I'm trying to remember who it was, but the first reporter at the New York Times to get a copy of Trump's tax, report.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the Times reported it that they had gotten it in an envelope under the door, of the newsroom.
Yeah.
So that's a long time later, and it's still happening. And in this case, I guess it was a wrong party that felt, another company that felt they were wronged in that they never got a bid. And so you could dismiss it and say, oh, it's nothing, But once I started investigating, I spoke to other companies that were freight forwarders and brokers that said the same thing.
Yeah.
And looked at lots of records. And, so before you go to press, you have your ducks lined up. You don't go to press with something that and if it's an unnamed source, the rule was, you had to get at least 2 unnamed source. And your one editor might know roughly who they are, but you would keep the name.
Mm-hmm. It seems like in a scenario of justice where maybe there's a bigger dog to say and a little dog who doesn't really have a voice yet, that's when, okay, we don't have any choice. We have to go to the press. What else are we going to do? Is that kind of?
You have to have, I think, some back, some reason to go to the press, if you have a valid. Because otherwise the press is going to say, this is, no, this is not valid. I'm not going to spend my time on this.
I mean, the whole press and
the person who did help me in DC, though, he did end up losing his job. So it wasn't too secret, the government person.
Yeah, good deed goes unpunished, as they say. What is your opinion of the press and media? Because obviously social media and everything has changed massively. And I remember reading a book by, I think it's Ryan Halliday, where he was talking about how a lot of the press now picks up their stories from little blog sites and other kind of thing. Do you think that in things like the whole role of the press has changed over the last 20 years or so? Or are you still hopeful, still think that the press is very good at keeping government and other agencies held to account, so to speak?
I think that the big papers and the big publications, at least in this country, I'm not sure, what's abroad, but I think the Washington Post, the New York Times, maybe the LA Times, they have staff that can go after something like this and put somebody like me or a team of people, on a story Now there's much more data looking at, investigate when you're investigating. But this one, the one I did long ago, did, look at numbers and facts. But the problem is that there's a lack, that the whole journalism world has changed, and that there's really, like, local papers don't have enough reporters, and very hard for them, a local TV station, a local, newspaper to spend the time and resources to really do investigative reporting that will mean change. Or to have, I was hired a few years ago by a local paper to be their assistant managing editor. And the editor who hired me said, every year I want to have like two pieces that we can nominate for a Pulitzer, and she saw my drive and she saw my involvement in community at the time. But when I got to the paper, it was so short-staffed, and that there was no time to do that. And, there was barely time, like one reporter every week had to do a real estate story. And it was basically, not really a story, because they had to do that for the real estate industry, kind of, they didn't say that, but and now everything is digital first if you're at a local paper. So if the reporter was out and was on the way to the paper and saw a fire, their job was to take a picture and send it out right away. So nobody was reading that before it went out. So you just have to hope they had it right. But at the Times, like, I was at a breakfast with a business editor at the Times, and he says nothing, everything is read twice before it goes out. And that is true for digital as well. So that's the story. The total, collapse of local journalism. And still, like, somebody like Rachel Maddow on her broadcast every day, she'll hold up the local paper and say they reported this, right? But they're getting it usually from the AP. So the AP, is still feeding. So, even the national shows they don't have people to follow. They're picking up what other people are doing. I don't know. But the good news is that there are, lots of now alternative sources. There's lots of digital news sites, and so there's more competition to get there first, which is a good thing.
Absolutely. Rose, it's been fabulous chatting with you. Tim's going to stick with you. I'm going to head out to a meeting, but thank you so much. I really wanted to have time to chat with you. You inspire me, not only in your journalism, but especially with how you hold up women, and you light a light towards women we should follow. So thank you. This has been fabulous. Tim, I'll see you soon.
Great to meet you. Bye.
So that's when your co-host has to go at exactly half past. It's the best tradition of these things. So let's talk a bit about your show, the Women to Follow one. Where can people find that, and what channels, and why did you suddenly switch from just Twitter to doing like live shows?
The pandemic. I kind of became a producer in the pandemic. In my work with Sri Srinivasan, who is was a journalism professor at Columbia Journalism School for 20 years, and then he was digital director of the Met, etc. He announced on this conference that they took virtually when it was supposed to be live, a social media conference, that he wanted to start a daily show about COVID. And he said, anybody want to volunteer? So, I love news. Yeah, that's me. And I got paid for it, as we did it. So it was myself and a young woman who was a graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania, Vandana Menon. And we were the two producers and him, and we did 250 shows in every day, consecutive shows, And so suddenly, I was learning what's, StreamYard. I was learning, I've done this. Live tweeting is not an issue. I do that. But I was doing it every day for this show. So when the show went live, I was live tweeting and telling the story of, getting quotes and screenshots. and learning how to, get clips from video. And then I also became a producer on another show with 2 women doctors, and I helped conceive the show and launch the show. And I run their Twitter handle, and it's called She's on Call. So it's 2 women doctors with the idea that, women as doctors are always on call. Like, they'll go to a concert, one of them says, and the band, the drummer will come up to her and say, see this on my back? Should I see a doctor? So that was a lot of fun. And it was right in the heart of, doing it every week with, what was happening with COVID as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So then people started saying, well, why don't you do your own show?
Yeah.
And I said, oh yeah, I guess so. That would be cool. And I started doing my own show in August.
Yeah. You're being complimented for your live tweet in there.
Thank you.
One thing better without Christelle here is it doesn't push all the titles up.
Yeah. And he's commenting on journalism. That's true.
Yeah.
Everything is live now. It's true.
Oh yeah. That was the name. The reason this show is called the Oh No, Not Another Live Show is that I had a digital dinner party with Christelle and another woman called April. And for some reason, at the end of it, I said, we should do a live show because it was such a good conversation between us. And April, the other person, dropped out after about a month of the show, but me and Christelle kept going. And it was called that because everybody was doing live shows. So it was kind of like, we were right at the end of the first lockdown period. So it's like, oh no, not another live show. And we kept going since. So that's the history of us. So where can people find your show? Where can people find you? And is there any message to the world that you want to put onto YouTube on our obscure channel where people can't find it?
Well, everyone can find me at my Twitter handle, which is Rose Horowitz 31. I'm very active. And I've started a new Twitter handle for WomenToFollow. So it's women _to_follow.
Yeah.
And then I just launched a website, which is also WomenToFollow.com with things that are, with the domain anyway, that stuff.
Yeah,
so it's hyphens with WomenToFollow for the WomenToFollow.com to get to see the website. And the website each week will feature the latest, show that I've done with also a link like to my Medium account. Because before I was doing the live stream, I did, 17 profiles as Twitter threads that I then made into a blog.
Yeah. Okay.
So and on YouTube, it's under Woman. So it's everything personally is under Rose Horowitz on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. And then for the show, there's now WomenToFollow on Twitter and WomenToFollow channel on YouTube.
Okay.
So.
Well,
and my message.
I forgot about that bit. Yeah.
So my call to action is to follow women. Somebody, this group called No Mantle USA, I think is their name on Twitter. But from their name, as you can hear, they're against there being mantles.
Yeah.
And they put out a challenge this new year for men to follow women. Retweet and follow women for 30 days in January.
Yeah.
So any men watching that, what I said on my tweet in response was, if you do that, I will retweet you and follow you when you do that. So, and I might develop a whole he for she kind of, do a show like that. Because there are a lot of men that I can, say that do that. But there still are men who I interviewed a scientist. She's a ethnobotanist. Yes, at Emory. And she was at a meeting and they asked her, if her father was the chair or something of the lab. So and when she said no, they said at the end, well, where's your husband?
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's this is now. This is 2021. This is 2022. Excuse me, happening now.
Yeah.
So I want all women to hopefully, if you follow me, you'll see what I'm trying to do with WomenToFollow, And the idea is to amplify women's voices on social media.
Yeah, and I'm going to put up Stefan's comment because it sounds nice to the show and nice to you. So you've got a great YouTube producer, he says, because we'll all be nice to each other.
Yeah, we do support each other. So.
Yeah, well, that's what you got to do. Men supporting women, women supporting women, and everybody supporting everybody.
I think I met you in a Twitter space with
it's May Kings,
right?
which I think I'm supposed to be in again in about an hour and a half. So I'll get all my stuff done. Thanks so much for being on the show. And,
thank you so much for inviting me and having me. Appreciate it.
And everybody go follow Rose on Twitter. Follow WomenToFollow and just generally be nice. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
This is terrifying for me.
I've made more money in the last 3 years than I did in the previous 7.
Shit.